and I've always wanted to do this too. I get to tell you guys, in case of a fire, you go out the doors that you came from, okay? Or, they told me not, they didn't say this, but I don't know why we can't go out this door. So, okay? If there's a fire out there, don't go out that way, go here, okay? And if Lee says anything, tell him I told you to. Okay, so what about Dana? Wasn't that great? And she taught herself. Well, I like looking at my audience. She taught herself how to play that dulcimer. Yeah. About 12 years ago. She's also a great artist. She does my Christmas cards every year for the past maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't know if you all know I have a dog named Barkley, and so she always creates that. And we really appreciate you being able to do that. If you're down here around the Beer Cheese Festival or the Pioneer Festival, she's always out front of the Art Guild, which she's a member of, and playing her dulcimer. And of course, we thank Homer Ledford for, I don't know, did he make yours?
No, not this one, but I have 16 of his.
16? Golly. God. Your husband must make a lot of good money. He doesn't know. She is also our very first storyteller. So Dana McCall, she's from Winchester, and I've known you for a long time. Yeah. So let me make sure this mic is on,
Okay.
and then I'll let
Might
you.
have to tilt it down a little bit.
Okay. Oh, it's on. Are you going to sit?
No, I'm going to stand. I might have to lean on this.
Well, hell, let's see.
If I could sit, I'd sit in the chair, but that's all right. I'll just stand up here.
You want to?
This
Well, hell, oh, Pete.
Here.
Okay.
That
Is
should
that
be
okay?
about right. Yeah, can y'all hear me now? Yes. Okay.
Okay. I'll take this chair.
This is my first time on stage being part of the entertainment, and I'm a little bit nervous, especially being first. So if anybody out there has an extra Xanax or a Valium in their pocket, toss it up here, now'd be the time. Whew, okay. I was just going to tell y'all a couple of short stories that my grandmother told me about when she was young, living on a farm. And I used to go over to her house and talk to her all the time. I loved talking to Mama. She was only 4'9" at her tallest and 4'6" at 94. That's where I get my height from. And anyway, I'd go over and sit, and I had my little notepad. And while she was talking and telling me these stories, I would write them down. I still have that little notepad. But anyway, one of the first stories that she told me, I'll tell you first about her mother and daddy. Her daddy's name was Millard Clifton Griggs, and he had a sister named Lily. And he went by the name of Cliff. And Cliff had a really good friend named Columbus Ketchum. And Columbus also had a sister named Lily. Now this is where my family tree starts getting a little bit crooked. But anyway, they started dating, and Cliff married Lily Ketchum, and Columbus married Lily Griggs. So the two girls just swapped last names. And to keep down the confusion, Grandpa called his wife by Chick, and that's what she always went by, Grandma Chick. So they went on to be tenant farmers with his brother, Uncle Houston, and his wife, Aunt Mirandy. Her name was Miranda, but country were Mirandy. So anyway, they lived in a tenant farm, and if you know what tenant farming is, it's like a duplex house in the country. They lived in it for free, and they farmed the land for Mr. Taylor, who was the farmer. They lived down on Becknerville Road. And this house didn't have any electricity. No, this was in 1919, so there was no electricity, no radio, no TV, no computer, so they had to keep themselves entertained. And I don't know if I told you, my mama was one of 16 kids, so Grandpa was entertained a lot. I think he excelled at it. So anyway, they would farm the farm, him and Uncle Houston, and they would work the cattle. They would plant tobacco, bring it in, hang it, take it down and strip it, did all of that, brought in hay for the cattle, and they did it all for $1 a day. Now, you can't buy a candy bar today for $1. You can't buy anything for $1. So anyway, late on Friday evenings, Mr. Taylor would come around with the pay. And about this time on Friday, Mr. Taylor hadn't come. And Grandma was getting real upset because they usually took the money and went down to Tanner's Grocery on Becknerville, and they would buy supplies that they needed for the week. And she was just worrying because they like to have a hot meal on the table for the men when they came in from work. And Aunt Randy told her, said, "Chick, don't worry, the Lord will provide." That was her favorite saying, "The Lord will provide." So Grandma said all they had was some flour in the pantry to make some biscuits, but she didn't have much else. So I said, didn't know what they were going to do. So Aunt Randy said, "Well, I'm going out in the yard and collect chips to start the fire." Now, if you don't know what chips are, chips is grass that's been passed through a cow and laid on the ground for several days to bake real good and hard in the sun and dry, and it makes a mighty fine fire in the wood cook stove. So she goes outside to collect the chips, and a little while some of the kids and Grandma hear her hollering, "Chick, Chick, get out of here, I got dinner." So they all run out on the porch, and they see Aunt Mirandy, and she's all bent over, and she's just pulling for all she's worth. And they look down, she had a tobacco stick in her hand, and she was just all pulling. And on the other end of that tobacco stick was a really mad, big snapping turtle. And you know, they say snapping turtles won't turn loose till it thunders. Well, undoubtedly, Aunt Mirandy don't either, because she was bound and determined they was having that turtle for dinner. So she hollers at Chick, and she said, "Chick, go over and get the axe." They had a chopping block, had an axe there. And she said, "I'll pull." And she pulled real hard, and in a minute, the old turtle's neck popped out, and down came the axe. So that night, when Grandpa and Uncle Houston came in, there was a nice hot dinner of fried turtle and biscuits and gravy. And my grandmother was about 6 years old at the time, and she says she remembers that as being one of the best meals she ever ate. I'm sure the old snapping turtle did not appreciate it at all. But anyway, that was one of the little stories that she would tell, and I thought it was cute, thought y'all might like it. So another one that she told me was a few years down the road when she was a little bit older, and Grandpa and Uncle Houston had another brother named Uncle Lish. His name was Elijah, but they called him Uncle Lish. Uncle Lish loved fried chicken, and he would come out and visit. Well, he was in the service at the time, and he was coming in to visit with the family, and Grandma had got up that morning early, and she was going to do the wash, because about midweek she did the wash. Now, she didn't have a Maytag wringer washer or anything. She had no wash tub out on the side porch by the kitchen, and she'd have to boil water, take it out, put the clothes in it, use old scrub board and lye soap that she had made on her own, and she would scrub the clothes good and clean. It was an all-day job to do it and hang them out on the line. And my mama, her name was Beatrice, she was bothering her, and she kept on, "Mama, you gotta cook Uncle Lish fried chicken for dinner." Now, Grandma usually on the morning of wash day, she'd make a big breakfast, and she would make a big, extra big batch of biscuits. And she would take the biscuits that were left over, and she'd slice them open and put homemade apple butter on them. And then she made a white sauce, kind of like you see on cinnamon rolls. And she'd put them on a platter, and she'd stack them up. And she'd pour that white sauce all over it, and it'd run all down between the biscuits and stuff, and she'd put it in the pie safe to keep it warm. And that's what they had for their dinner that night, because she didn't have time to cook. So Mama just kept on, "Mama, cook fried chicken for Uncle Lish." Well, just cooking the fried chicken wasn't the thing of it. You had to go out and catch the chicken, kill the chicken first, then pluck the chicken, take all these innards out, and then you had to cut him up and then fry him. So that was a long time to do too. So she kept saying, "Beatrice, I'm not going to fry chicken today." I said, "Uncle Lish just have to do without chicken today." She said, "Oh, Mom, please make fried chicken." Well, in the meantime, while they was doing the wash, there's an old rooster. And the old rooster, every time the screen door, you know how they won't latch sometimes on the side of the house, it would fly open and swing closed, and fly open and swing closed. And the old rooster, every time he'd see it fly open, he'd run into the kitchen, see what he could get into. And then in a little bit, he'd run out. So Grandma seen him run in the kitchen, and she says, "B, go in there and run that run that rooster out of the kitchen before he gets into something." So Mama goes in, and she's shooing the chicken, and he's flying all around. She shoos him, and the chicken didn't have his timing down just right this time. So when he headed for the back door, when the screen door flew open, he didn't make it quite in time, and the screen door come to right on his, yeah. So Grandma said, "Well, go get the butcher knife. We can't let him go to waste." So Uncle Lish got his fried chicken that night. And like I said, Uncle Lish loved fried chicken. So he would tell the girls, he said, "Now girls, if you go behind the kitchen door and eat the chicken feet," he said, "you'll grow up tall and pretty." Now my grandmother was only 4'9", so it didn't work on her. But while they were behind the kitchen door, he was eating all the best parts of the chicken. He knew what he was doing. So anyway, that was a couple. I've got a lot of stories that Mama told me, and I've written them all down, and maybe next year I can tell a few more. But anyway, when I was talking about our family tree, Mama and her older sister, Mick, grew up, and they met two guys that were first cousins. Not their first cousins. The guys were first cousins. And my papa's name was Homer D. Stanfield, and Aunt Mick's husband was William Stanfield. Now, William and Aunt Mick went on to tenant farm, and their boys even tenant farmed for years for the same family. And Mama married Homer, and Homer was a third-generation railroad laborer. He worked on the L&N Railroad. And his daddy and his papa did too. And they worked on the rail gang. That they didn't drive the trains or work on the trains, but they made sure the track was maintenance. It became the railroad maintenance away years later. But anyway, he started working on the railroad when he was just 15 years old. So he was young. And all the other guys on the gang, I made the mistake one time of calling it a chain gang, and that's a whole nother profession. He worked on the rail gang. He wouldn't have liked it if he'd heard that. So anyway, he was 15 years old, and the guys on the gang kind of teased him about being so young, and they said, "Well, since you're so young, we're not going to call you Homer," said, "we're going to call you Babe," and said, "when you prove that you can do the work, then we'll call you by your name Homer." And as he got older and stuff and worked on the railroad, he became Mr. Homer. That's what they called him. But anyway, I wrote a song. I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I guess I was dreaming about him, and I wrote this song about him, and if y'all don't care, I'm going to sing it for you. Now, I said I'm going to sing it. I didn't say I can sing. I just said I'm going to. That's never stopped me. And I'm a little bit out of breath, so anyway, it goes like this. It's called Papa Was a Railroad Man. My papa was a railroad man like his daddy before him. He was just a boy 15 when he started on the L&N. The gang all joked and called him Babe, Babe with the pretty blue eyes. But Papa grew into a man driving spikes into railroad ties. He'd swing a 9-pound hammer before the break of day and come home late every night with very little pay. And then he met a red-headed gal with a spark he couldn't deny, and said, "Little gal, if you marry me, I'll love you for the rest of my life." Well, they got 'em a house down by the tracks where they raised a family, and they rocked their babies to the clickety-clack of the rhythmic melody. And late at night he'd listen to that lonesome whistle blow, 'cause Papa was a railroad man, that's all he'd ever know. Well, the work in the yards was always hard, and with time it took its toll. But Papa'd be there every day. He loved to make the freight trains roll. I remember as a little girl sitting on his knee, he'd slap his thigh with a twinkle in his eye and sing "Jimmy Crack Corn" for me. 'Cause Papa was a railroad man like his daddy before him. He was just a boy 15 when he started on the L&N. The gang all joked and called him Babe, Babe with the pretty blue eyes. But Papa was a railroad man till the day he died. Now every time I hear a train, it brings back memories of a pair of blue eyes and a crooked grin and a railroad melody. Thank you all, I appreciate it. So, I'm done. I was born and raised here in Winchester, and I love it, and I can't imagine living anyplace else.
She'll be at the Grand Ole Opry before you know it. You'll be at the Grand Ole Opry before you know it. That was great.
Well, thank you.
I didn't know you could write songs. Oh, you did excellent. Did excellent.
That was my one-hit wonder.
I love it. I love it.